from Jewish authors, you'll learn that it was a very violent doctrine. It acknowledged that a people will have to be essentially removed, and if it had to be violently, that's fine.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break right now, so stay tuned. You're watching the Muslim Roundtable. We'll be back real quick. Welcome back to the Muslim Roundtable. Today we're talking about the issue of Palestine. We were just discussing about the current conflict, and it's been going on for a very long time now. And I just want to ask Sister Nadine, do you think there can be a legitimate peace between the Israelis and Palestinians?
If I could answer that question, I think I should be up for a Nobel Peace Prize. But what I can say is, before I go into that, even if in an ideal world there was peace, there wasn't violence, I still think that people living there on both sides have been so emotionally scarred that even if there was peace, that still goes on, and that still there's still this fire that's burning inside of everyone there. And I have an example of something that people there might be thinking. Their children, Palestinian children there, I mean, I'm talking young children, probably know the difference just by listening between a 500 millimeter machine gun and an 800 millimeter one, or they know the difference between a helicopter raid and a warplane raid. They know the difference, and I don't think parents can forgive things like that. Their children growing up in a society like that, I don't think that's forgotten. I'm sure they're scarring on both sides, not just the Palestinian side. So even if there was peace, that goes on. But I do think the number one reason why there can't be peace is there are no boundaries drawn, and there aren't two separate states. And I mean, we touched on this earlier. It's the settlements that are making it difficult to draw up those lines, those state lines. And I think if we can somehow, if I could, great. I'm sure it's almost impossible. But if we were to be able to move these settlements over so that we can draw boundaries, we can draw different boundaries and have two separate states, that would definitely be one step closer to stopping the violence.
I just wanted to quickly expand on the psyche. She touched on an important point about what happens with kids there. During my first medical mission in late September, early October of 2002, the first day I was there, we were touring the city and visiting all the different refugee camps. And there was a bombing that took place from Apache fire at around 2 p.m. And we rushed to the scene because we were part of a medical team. And we saw two cars that were annihilated, and there were innocent pedestrians that were killed. But the more striking thing was that there were about 200 kids sitting there as if nothing had happened. Now, if you think about what normally happens in the United States, if there's an explosion, people run, they scatter. They don't stay in the proximity of the scene. The exact opposite has taken place, and there's such a numbing that's been going on over the years. It's very detrimental.
They got used to it. They're used to the bombing, and it's not a big sin.
And I feel like that's what's happening now, because if people don't watch what our government's doing, our government is just going to keep its policy of supporting Israel against the Palestinians. And we have to understand that Israel is way more powerful than the Palestinians are. So you're having like this big, huge guy negotiate with this little guy.
David and Goliath.
And the only way to balance that out is for the United States to come in and support the David against the Goliath. But the United States does the opposite. It comes in and says, Israel's position on this is correct. Israel's position on that is correct. No right of return for the refugees. On the most important issues, the United States will back Israel. Why? Because the people in the United States let it happen. I mean, that's the only thing we really can do, is organize ourselves, as people, and try to understand what's going on there. Because the peace process, the way it's going, it's a dead end. The roadmap is a dead end.
So what kind of things can we do, Dr. Nathanson, to change the views of America to make it more balanced and fair, do you think? What can we do here in America?
I'm very pessimistic about the ability of the American people, or their desire, even let alone their understanding and knowledge of the details and the roots and the details of the conflict, to impact on the policy of the United States, which has been rooted in scores of years of special interests. If you look at the involvement of the U.S. government in the in the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians before the creation of the State of Israel, there was no question that the U.S. government supported the Jewish interests in Palestine for various reasons, whether it was religious or
economic.
Well, not economic, but maybe political reasons against probably the wishes of the State Department, which always was, if not pro-Arabic, but more
Even.
the easy solution, of course, and a lot of Israelis, I talk to my friends, and even my sister still lives in Israel, say, oh, the Americans should put pressure on the Israelis, but they're not willing to do so. I really think that the solution is when both the Palestinians and the Israelis, or the leadership of both people, really internalize the problem and they really have decided that they have to settle politically. Each side still thinks or dreams or secretly wishes that the other people will go away or something will happen, and so miraculously their deep-rooted aspirations will be fulfilled.
You can't minimize the United States' role in it. It's not just Israel and Palestinians, because the United States gives billions of dollars to Israel. So at least if we stopped that,
Who's we?
the United States. If the United
How
States,
they're going to stop it? Who's going to stop them?
people here who I think are going to get so fed up. Everyone who goes to a school where they don't have books, everyone who doesn't get money from the government or have benefits from the government should see that. It might not happen, but that's what should happen. All we have to do is say the United States stop supporting Israel unconditionally and unevenly, and then maybe Israel and the Palestinians can work it out. I'm not saying we have to be pro-Palestinian. We don't have to make the United States government pro-Palestinian, but just not be so pro-Israeli. Only activists can do this.
I think another one of the problems. Let me just interject real quick. Is like Dr. Nathanson brought up the issue of religious differences, and this is United States is mostly a Judeo-Christian country, right, or Christian country, right. And there's a lot of evangelical Christians who have that tradition we were talking about earlier the other day, that they believe that the Jewish people should have the land, the Holy Land, and they have a lot of influence on the U.S. government. And President Bush, he's pretty. With
a caveat, they should have the land until Armageddon, and at that time, most of them will either convert it to Christianity or will be annihilated. So I mean,
isn't that classic anti-Semitism? That view?
Well, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, they think that the Jewish religion is nonsense if they think that, right? So,
well, they're just
seeking their self-interest, and Irfan is right when he says that Bush is in line with the evangelical movement that's taking place in the country. In fact, PBS, which is a publicly funded TV station, has had fundraisers for the evangelical Judeo link that have raised significant amounts of money that go back to Israel and then facilitate further occupation.
Yeah. Okay, right before we...
Okay. Moving away from Israel, I read something, I want to throw something out there that I read. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but according to several different newspapers, national newspapers, they polled, or I guess somehow they got information about Israeli settlers, and they asked them, or they got a general opinion of how they felt about leaving the settlements and moving out of I guess those areas. A majority of them were okay with moving if it did result in genuine peace. I'm not sure how accurate that is, and I'm sure people can argue that, but
I could comment on that.
I'm sure you can, but I do think that it's a thought. If they were willing to do that in return for genuine peace, regardless of U.S. backing or not, if they're willing to do that.
I wouldn't be surprised because not all the settlers are cut of the same cloth, and some moved there for economical reason because they had cheap housing, which was wholly subsidized by the by the Israel government and by the American government. Yeah. And there are some settlers who are truly zealots, and I think that they are pretty immovable unless they are kind of forcefully being evicted.
Yeah. I agree, and
those are the minority.
Sorry to cut everyone off. We just got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on the Muslim Roundtable. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the Muslim Roundtable Show. Today we're talking about the issue of Palestine, and we were just discussing about the Israeli settlers